This is officially a José Saramago Stan account. Hello, my name is Dominique and I am a reader, writer, and infrequent YouTuber. This is the first video of 2025. Welcome to the first video of 2025 in which I will be trying my hand at the writing routine of Nobel Prize winning author José Saramago. Honestly, this writing routine did not go as planned. Initially, I started it right after I returned to Portugal from my holidays back in the States. I'm still a bit jet lagged and feeling like I'm in the post-holiday blues, and I didn't account for the post-holiday blues that I found myself in. And then I ended up getting some not so great news about work, which I will talk about later on in the video. But nevertheless, we persist. I completed 4 days of this writing routine. I didn't produce everything that I had intended to produce, but I definitely got somewhere in the drafting process of this novella that I've been working on, and I'm hoping to maybe self-publish. But before we get into the routine, a little bit about José Saramago. Born in November of 1922 to landless peasants in a small Portuguese village called Azinhaga, he's the author of novels such as The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, Blindness, and The Tale of the Unknown Island. He was quite outspoken about his political and philosophical beliefs and remained critical of institutions, including the Portuguese government and the Catholic Church. When his novel, The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, was banned by the Portuguese government for being religiously offensive, he went into self-exile on the Canary Island of Lanzarote. In 1995, he won the Camões Prize. In 1998, he won the Nobel Prize in Literature for his parables sustained by imagination, compassion, and irony, with which he continually enables us once again to apprehend an illusory reality. My introduction to Saramago's fiction was his novel Blindness, which completely blew me away with its exploration of the most profound of human experiences. It paints a picture of society's shadow self, as bleak as you can imagine, and then manages to shine a light or to capture a light of just the impact of the smallest act of love or the smallest act of compassion. And yeah, chef's kiss. Now, onto his writing routine. Courtesy of the Paris Review, Saramago said that when the work required it, he wrote every day. Though he was very disciplined, he didn't require a certain amount of hours per day, just a certain amount of output for a particular project, which corresponded to about 2 pages per day. He would write 2 pages, print them at the end of each day, and then read and alter. So that's what I plan to do over the next 4 days. I'm going to write 2 pages, print them out, and then read and alter from the physical copy of that work. Pretty simple, pretty doable, and no need to overdo it for the first writing routine of the year.
Se há momento na minha vida que é momento chave, que é momento de decisão. Não perguntar a ninguém, e agora o que é que eu faço, que foi coisa que eu nunca perguntei a ninguém. Pois agora ou nunca que eu vou saber finalmente se sou escritor ou se não sou escritor.
Good morning. I figured I would get up, get the day started with a nice morning walk, get some groceries, because I need to get the fresh air, obviously. And also I just figured moving my body before I sit down to write might get the juices flowing a little bit better. It's day 1 of trying José Saramago's writing routine, and I have my tea. I just came back from my walk. Last week I was working on a newsletter and a short story, and it's been taking me a few days because editing is really hard by yourself, and once I pull one thread, the rest of the story kind of falls apart, and then I lose the plot, I lose the theme, and I've just been doing this day in and day out. And for the last 3 days, every time I would sit to edit, the story would just completely change, and I didn't know which path I wanted to follow. So I'm just gonna let the story finish or do what it wants to do today, post it, and then get on with this novella project that I intended to work on with this writing routine. All right, so I just sent out the newsletter and posted a short story with it. I've been working on the short story for about a week, and every day that I would revise it, I just kept losing a bit of the plot. And the initial idea I had isn't necessarily how the story ends up, but it got to the point where I just had to post something because I kept putting off sending out the newsletter and then getting in my head about the fact that I hadn't, published anything yet. So we'll see how that goes, because every week actually, I want to post a short story, or I come up with these ideas, but then I take too long on them, and then I abandon them eventually. But I want to see if I can get into a rhythm of just writing something, making it as good as I can make it, and then just posting it so that I can move on to other stories. With that being said, it's still day one, and I haven't written the 2 pages in this novella. I would not recommend working on multiple projects, and I actually don't know why I'm doing this myself, other than making content and trying to improve with craft. But to be in the mind or the headspace of different stories with different characters and all of that, it's a bit chaotic. But because I started this story a while ago and I take a little bit of a break and then I come back to it, it's going to be really interesting to see if I can now just throw myself back in and see if maybe I can get 2 pages. So when I started day 1 last week, I got the document to about 7,000 words. So now we're going to try to get 2 more pages into this. Saramago said that while 2 pages might not seem like a lot, when you're working on a lot of other things, like I was working on my Substack newsletter and just putting together a few different ideas and projects, the 2 pages actually lead you somewhere. So if you can commit to that, if it takes 6 months or if it takes a year, you would have put enough effort into it to have something substantial. I was able to publish my newsletter and then in the afternoon turn my attention to this novella, which in all honesty wasn't the wisest order, because by then I had exhausted my mental clarity and essentially just wrote gibberish on the page. But this is something that was in part due to not having any clear direction for the novella, which I figured out later on in the week. All right, so I have written about 1,000 words and I'm about to go to the printers before they close so that I can print out what I've written so far. And it's not just going to be the 2 pages, it's going to be the entire working draft that I have been working on. So day 1, done. I decided to start day 2 at a cafe because it just felt like a very Portuguese thing to do. I used this time to read over the draft so far and get a good feel of what I was working with in the story. And as much as the early draft feels as if I'm just writing down a lot of nonsense, I really appreciated that certain concrete elements of the story began to rise to the surface, and it gave me something to work with. I've just finished writing my 2 pages. I realized that because I typically like to write my first drafts longhand, writing on the computer doesn't feel as organic to me, and I don't find that I actually connect to the story and the characters in the same way. And I know that Saramago didn't mind writing on the computer, and then once he had the physical copy of the printed pages, that's when he was able to really connect to the story and connect to whatever it is that he was writing. But yeah, it just became really apparent to me today that maybe one of the reasons I struggle the most when I'm getting the words down on the computer screen is because of that distance, I want to say. And then on top of that, I am convinced that the story only gives you, or when you're writing the first draft, you're going to write the most incoherent stuff, and you have to get through all of that because the story needs to know that you're committed to telling it. And so it won't start to give you any goodness or anything of substance until you've shown that I will write all of these terrible words, which essentially I did today, and then I'll give you something, which it did towards the end of those 2 pages. And I'm like, finally, I have something that I can work with. So that's where I am for day 2. I'm also really glad that Saramago does not impose any time constraints, and that I don't have to sequester my writing time to maybe just the morning or an hour or nighttime, anything like that. It's just during the day, I have to get 2 pages done. And once I've produced those 2 pages, that's the work. So that's where I am for day 2, and I am now off to the printers. Então, 2 páginas impressas. On day 3, I woke up pretty early and I got some writing down. I knew I would be meeting a friend later, so I wanted to spend as much time in the project before then. And it was nice to wake up early and get in some words before sunrise. And while day 3 was still a bit directionless, I did give my characters free range to sort of reveal themselves a bit more to me, and I put them in these random scenarios, and I was just making things up that doesn't necessarily pertain to the story, but I was just putting them in different scenarios, trying to see what characteristics about them or just opportunities for conflict, and it worked out pretty well. I also unfortunately didn't make it to the printers by the end of day 3, but I did write quite a bit. All right, so we are currently at 10,468 words, and I'm getting some stuff down. I think the story is starting to make itself known little by little. Today I was really struggling with developing some ideas and generating an idea so that the plot can move forward. And I came across some writer tips and tricks as far as storyboarding and putting the scene out so that you can get a picture of whatever it is that needs to happen. And so with a lot of character development that I've been doing, where I just like write backstory and try to figure out who these characters are, today was really fun because I just made up some conflicts or made up some scenarios and wrote through that. It was really interesting to see how I started with one idea, and then as I kept writing, another thing would come up and I'm like, maybe I should follow that and follow that. And the beauty of this being the first draft, I can follow all of these paths. I'm getting words on the page, and then when something really sticks and it feels like it's something, I follow that. So that's where I am for day 3. Now, day 4 was tough. I still managed to get words down, but I wasn't feeling in the best of spirits. Today is kind of rough day, but I managed to print yesterday's and today's. So I'm gonna add that to the stack now. And today I really just wrote mainly an outline. I got some not so great news because my video editing work is being cut essentially in half. So I have a little bit of an income worry that's now going on. And so, yeah, it's just really hard to navigate trying to do this thing that you're so passionate about and at the same time, make a living. It's like really interesting that this is happening all over again, because the life of a freelancer is essentially this, like, work is not secure, it's not a very stable career path, but it does afford me at times, this opportunity to write and to work on craft. But on days like today, not so much. And so yeah, I'm gonna finish out this week with this project and then see what happens. But today was really interesting in that after I had my meeting, I started to feel all of those same pangs of, oh my gosh, I'm not skilled at anything, I'm not worth anything. And obviously if someone were to come to me saying all of the things I was saying to myself today, I would tell them that they've got this, they can pull it together. But I do understand the feeling of it because it just hits you really hard and you have to just regroup and pull yourself together, hit the ground running, looking for work, and all of that good stuff. So essentially that's where I'm at right now. And I feel like I've said essentially, particularly, typically a lot today. But I have these 2 pages from yesterday, the 2 pages from today printed. I'm actually going to take a break. I just want to not focus on anything and just kind of clear my head. Also, I'm going to wash my hair. So the last day of writing like Saramago required a bit of self-care to help me avoid free-falling into the depths of despair. I'm all right, but I made sure I ate something hearty and gave my hair some TLC while trying not to think of the writing, the video editing, or anything else. So that's it. I completed the 4 days. So what did I learn in these 4 days of writing like Saramago? Well, firstly, I learned that The writing isn't always romantic, even if you make really cool YouTube videos about it. But yeah, it's not as glamorous, and it's quite frustrating because it's competing with the rest of your life most of the time, and the words don't always come. But when you stay disciplined, the words eventually will come and they will lead you somewhere. And the second thing is that when the words do come, you have to just welcome them no matter what they are and where they lead you. I love a quote from Saramago where he said that when things don't come as well as I would have liked, I have to resign myself to accepting them as they are. So that's it. 2 pages, really doable. I would encourage anyone to approach their writing with this criteria in mind. I still prefer to write longhand as far as early drafting goes, so I will return to that for the rest of this early drafting process. And I'm not going to complain. I'm going to do my best not to complain about the writing. Let me know what some of your favorite writing routine or habits are, and feel free to leave comments down below. And let me know if there are any other writing routines you'd like to see me try. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Até a próxima.